Want to bring in now from Berlin, Anton Troianovski, Moscow bureau chief for the New York Times. Anton, thanks for joining us on this. Appreciate it. I know that I was just speaking about the battlefield in Ukraine with Richard Engel on the ground there, but I want to circle back, if we can, to the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. You wrote an incredibly beautiful piece for the New York Times talking about his writings from prison, which were really powerful in reading them. You wrote this at one point: if they're told to feed you caviar, this is something that Alexei wrote, if they're told to feed you caviar tomorrow, they'll feed you caviar. If they're told to strangle you in your cell, they'll strangle you. That gave me, I have to say, Anton, chills in reading that, as if he saw his death coming.
Yeah, I also had chills when I saw that letter from a friend of Navalny's who shared some of those letters with me. Absolutely, Navalny, he had been in prison for more than 3 years. He was imprisoned after surviving an attack with a military-grade nerve agent. He knew that what he was doing could well cost him his life. But as you saw throughout that imprisonment, and as we saw in reading those letters that he sent to friends and acquaintances while he was in prison, you could see that even as he understood those risks, he was determined, he kept his clarity of mind, and he was really convinced that what he was doing was right.
Well, and he was determined in his political cause, in his political fight, which I found astounding. I mean, we saw that in his return after he was poisoned. And then as he returned, obviously, he didn't even get off the bus at the terminal at the airport, and he was arrested yet again. But even in his determination for the future of Russia, I thought was astounding. In a letter, you spoke with someone who said in their final letter with Navalny, Mr. Navalny concluded it by positing that if South Korea and Taiwan were able to make the transition from dictatorship to democracy, then perhaps Russia could too, as if he still had this optimism, spending 300 days, as you wrote in your piece in the New York Times, in solitary confinement.
Absolutely. I think what he said right before that quote there was, hope, I've got no problem with it. He had this hope, and his hope was contagious. And I think that's why his death is so devastating to so many people, certainly Russians around the world, who believe in a different future for Russia, because they could really see their country's future in Navalny. And so now, without him alive, there really is this question. There's this vacuum of what else could a post-Putin Russia look like?
We think about Alexei Navalny and how he died in that prison, and we still don't know the details of that death, and his family is still demanding the details of his death. And we also see what has taken place this morning with your friend, Evan Gershkovich, the journalist, the Wall Street Journal reporter, his appeal being rejected by a Moscow court. He has been detained for nearly a year now. And also now this news of this dual U.S. and Russian national who has been detained. What is the future you see for Gershkovich? What are you most worried about? What are you most worried about for the people that are now speaking out in light of Navalny's death?
Well, for Gershkovich, for my friend and colleague Evan, it's just we have to get him out of there. He was doing his job. He was an accredited journalist working with Moscow in Moscow, in Russia, doing incredibly valuable reporting. So there, it's really just incredible appreciation for everyone out there, including in the U.S. government, who's been working so hard to get him out. And it just keep going, and we do have to get him out.
Do you know anything quickly here, Anton, about this dual national that was detained? Do you know anything more about what she's being accused of or who she is?
Yeah, so the details are sketchy at the moment, but, she's described as a Los Angeles resident. And what's really remarkable here is that the early reports are her offense was transferring just over $50 just over $50 to an organization supporting Ukraine. So that really shows you the degree of arbitrariness in Russia right now.
Yeah, certainly ahead of this presidential, quote unquote, election there, as Vladimir Putin is running for, quote unquote, as I say again, re-election. Anton Troianovski, thank you. Appreciate it. Really incredible stuff.